What we did is that we set up an experiment jointly with the government of Niger, where we basically evaluated a program that combined the provision of cash transfers to the poorest family with the provision of behavioral change component, trying to induce behavioral changes among parents. And so what we did is set up a study in a way to try to disentangle the effect from the cash transfers from the effect of the behavioral change components. And so we do that by trying to look not only at the effectiveness of that program in improving parenting practices, but also the effectiveness of this program in improving final outcomes for children, so anthropometrics, cognitive development, and then social development as well. The first one is that we see fairly broad changes in parenting practices among parents that were exposed to the behavioral change components. So we see that parents exposed to this intervention change their practices in terms of nutrition for young children, in terms of health-seeking behavior, and preventive health behavior, but also in terms of psychosocial stimulation and child protection and disciplining behavior. So we see these fairly broad-based changes, and we see them driven by the behavioral change component and not by the cash transfer elements of the program. The second set of findings is also quite noteworthy. We see that not only changes in practices are observed among beneficiaries of the cash transfers, but we see that these changes in practices are also observed among their neighbors in the same communities that are not receiving the cash transfers. So in a way, this suggests that the changes in practices are quite widespread in those communities and may be related to changes in social norms around parenting and early childhood development. And then the third set of findings is a slightly more disappointing one, because we see that even though those changes in parenting practices are quite strong, we see more limited effects on children's human capital. One thing that doesn't show up in the final research report is just how much effort had to go into monitoring the intervention, both participation from individual in the intervention, but also the quality of the service provided. And so there was a lot of work together with the government to make sure that we had a good understanding of how this whole program was being delivered, and we could interpret the results faithfully based on what was being done in the field. Maybe the other challenges were related really to data collection. I mean, Niger is a very low capacity setting. We had to collect a lot of fairly complex data on child development, which hadn't been done in that scale in Niger. And so we had to put together a team of researchers, including experienced psychologists, not only to adapt the tools to the local context, but also to then supervise the data collection. What's very inspiring is just that we're addressing a challenge that's basically both huge and both very urgent.